Most people. There were some people I was kind of considering getting rid of anyway, so... are we live? Yes, I think we're live now. I can never tell. Oh, let me post the link, shouldn't I?
Yeah. And then I can tweet it.
Well, I mean, I already have the tweet.
Get all my followers in. I'm a pretty big deal.
So true. Post that. Post it here. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to episode 30 now. Wow, of Flooded Cinema, and we've got a very special part one of a two-part special that we're doing for the new year, the new calendar year, I should say, old calendar, new year. We're doing a retrospective of the Brosnan era of James Bond 007. Very, very exciting, and I'm joined today by, first time ever, two guests. We've got John, or at Dashhound Obese, and I'm joined also by my lovely co-host, or semi-co-host, I don't know what the term is, Jack as well.
Perpetual guest.
Yeah.
Hello.
Say hello, guys.
Hello. Hey.
Now, today, of course, we will be discussing Goldeneye and Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah, let's get into it. Goldeneye, probably one of the best action movies of the 90s, I must say. It's like my initial thought. What do you guys think? Go ahead, John. Yeah. Take it away.
Yeah, I think like it's defined the 90s of good action films, and I mean it was the bringing back of Bond because was it? Oh man, it was either Living Daylights or I can forgetting the name. I guess I have to look it up. But the last Timothy Dalton film was I think 1988.
Wow. Okay, so 7 years.
Yeah, I thought they had given a good gap of time. Oh, 89.
License to Kill. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they to bring it back in 95, it was a big deal. So I remember, I didn't have a big, I don't think I saw it in the theaters or anything like that, but I just remember when I did watch it, just a big deal because it was so. You know how decades work. We all know movies, an 80s movie is an 80s movie. It kind of still is an 80s movie in 1990, 1991. So by 95, you're actually now getting to the definition of that decade in culture.
Yeah.
And so when there was no gap, it was 89 you have Dalton, and then you have a 95 instead of 2 years later, which is what they normally did, 2 or 3 years. Yeah. So yeah, it was really cool because it was right into the 90s style of action movies.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite Bond film. I mean, this is the first one I saw. I didn't see it. So it came out the year I was born. A bit of docs info for you. So I didn't see it until a few years later. But and I played through the Nintendo 64 game multiple times before I ever saw the movie. So when I went back to watch the movie, really was tripped me out because I'm oh, this is just the game. They did a good job adapting this game.
I think I spent more time playing the game than even the movie, so that when I was going to say in the Goldeneye, the intro to Goldeneye has more connection to me with the N64 level, that one level that has to do with the bathroom and stuff, and that was the most iconic playthrough in the game for me. When you play with your buddies, you play on that level and you do proxy mine battles and stuff that.
Yeah. It's interesting that I would say the game is probably much more iconic than the movie. It's kind of it's the one example I think ever where the adaptation from a movie video game outshines the. Because it's it's a fantastic movie, but culturally, whenever you say Goldeneye, people are referring to the game, which is interesting. That's phenomenon. But we're not here to discuss the game too much. What have I got written down here?
Played the game.
You never played the game?
I'm a
Oh
Zoomer.
my gosh. Oh my
I was
gosh.
born in, I was born in 2002.
I'm gonna have to force you to download the game and play it.
You're gonna hate the control style or
No,
the
no,
way the.
there's a mod where you can make it play with keyboard and mouse.
Oh, okay. Well, then
That's
you're
what I've
gonna
been
love
using.
it.
That's what I've been using. I mean, it's very nostalgic going back and playing it, but
Very much.
you know, that's the way it is.
I have a
Uh,
note that said that I thought Brosnan looked a lot like Timothy Dalton, in my opinion, and I'm sure that's a very opinion, but I feel like
It's just
they
the
kind of.
interesting thing is that like James Bond is usually meant to be an Anglo, but like he obviously started off with Sean Connery, who's Scottish, so it's a Celt. Then went to Roger Moore, or went to George Lazenby, who's Australian. I don't know what ethnicity he is. Then went back to Sean Connery, then Roger Moore, who's actually English, I'm pretty sure. Then Timothy Dalton, who's Welsh, so another Celt. And then Pierce Brosnan, who's Irish, so a Celt. So it's been all of the ethnicities of the British Isles except for a Cornish person. But
They
most
just
of them
can't
being
find
Celt.
I don't think we're ready for a Cornish Bond.
Well, what was Daniel Craig?
I think he's an Anglo. He has blonde
true.
hair and blue eyes, so I doubt he's a Celt.
No. Yeah, well, we're not here to discuss.
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan does have the Irish look. That's for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think, yeah, and generally, I love Brosnan's whole vibe. He's just great. He takes it, he brings it back, I guess. I mean, like, what do you think of his Bond, basically, his portrayal? Like, compared to, say, the earlier ones?
I suppose it's his is because this whole like for Goldeneye, I suppose you have to put into context with the previous film, License to Kill.
Yeah.
Which was because Timothy Dalton was because his film still has sort of like goofy sort of gadgetry, but his actual portrayal of Bond was meant to be more serious because he was a big fan of the books and had studied them in depth. Like he took it as a very, very serious role.
Okay.
And then you also have the fact that since '81, For Your Eyes Only, which was Roger Moore, all the way through to Timothy Dalton's, so that's like 5 films, all directed by John Glenn.
Okay.
So that's a big jump to also change to Pierce Brosnan, who's taking it a bit more lighthearted, and to change director to Martin Campbell. So it's sort of the whole thing was meant to be a revitalization.
Yeah.
It sort of reflects a more sort of carefree, sort of goofy 90s.
Yeah.
Well, I find my one note I made, and I would say this has to be pretty obvious with the Pierce Brosnan ones. I mean, clearly Goldeneye I think is the most serious, especially him as a character.
Yeah.
Everything is taken. It's kind of like if you went and watched Casino Royale with Daniel Craig, where they're like, yeah, we're gonna be so edgy and serious. Like which it's a good movie, but I mean, they were going for they wanted to I mean, the dude freaking Bond runs through drywall in the first opening bit, so they're trying to make a different they're trying to make a statement there. Well, I think they did the same with Brosnan, just not in the same way, but. As the movies go on with the Brosnan movies, man, they get pretty goofy.
Well, that's,
So.
See, that's the interesting mirror because Daniel Craig's first one, Casino Royale, is also directed by Martin Campbell.
Oh.
So what Martin Campbell does is he's great at revitalizing a series because after Pierce Brosnan's, they've got increasingly goofy. They sort of snowballed on the gadgetry and things. And then you have the Bourne series comes out.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is insanely sort of gritty, down to earth, with its shaky cam fight style, which is actually done good in those films, but it's difficult to pull off. You need to be very skilled to do it well, which Paul Greengrass is. And then, they can't take Pierce Brosnan's quite seriously.
Yeah, I've heard it was a two-pronged thing. So the issue was the Bourne movies came out and everyone, loved these quote-unquote... I mean, I've got lots of things to say about the Bourne movies for a different reason. But
I like the first one, but...
I mean, I like them as movies, just like the political, le cool spooks type thing is
Well, that's an issue with James Bond as well.
Yeah, but it's more forgivable with Bond for just because of it's a cultural thing. But
Yeah.
then also Austin Powers as well on the other side.
Yeah.
So it's like at this point, like the whole spy thing had been done in a mainstream way, completely comedically and also completely quote unquote seriously, and so it was sort of like, well, what is Bond supposed? You can't. You so they I think that's what I've heard is it was because of that they couldn't really. They had to go serious, I guess, was their gambit.
Yeah, because they had to do what Alan Moore did with like Batman and stuff, and they had to and Swamp Thing. They had to deconstruct him and like tear him apart. Basically, they and that's totally what Casino Royale is. It's a deconstruction. Now that's where you got to give credit to Goldeneye, because they had such a big break, just like Die Another Day has a big break. Well, decent. It's not actually that big of a break between that and Casino Royale. Die Another Day and Casino Royale has a decent break, or at least a little more than normal. But so did Goldeneye, and Goldeneye just like jumped right back in.
Usually, it's about 2.
Right. So Goldeneye was like longer, right?
Yeah.
And so they jumped right back into it, and Martin Campbell. They obviously did a really good job, because as we go through the movie, like I can say there's a couple good scenes that I actually. So you're looking at Pierce Brosnan Bond movies, and you're thinking, okay, these are kind of like aged out and they could be cheesy or whatever, but there's good scenes. Like, well, the intro scenes are solid. Like the intro scene is a solid scene, but also
Goldeneye's intro is a masterpiece.
Goldeneye I would borderline give a 9 out of 10. Honestly,
I don't mean to like suck Martin Campbell off. I'm a big fan of his, but like the intro to Casino Royale is also incredible.
Yes.
That's a fantastic. Well, he's just a really great filmmaker, because he also did Zorro, the first Antonio Banderas Zorro, which is full of like great filmmaking.
I think I've sort of memed myself. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I have a bad story with Zorro. That's why I'll never watch it again. I don't know if I want to say it, but it's like a connection that destroys that movie for me. Yeah. So anyway. What were you going to say?
You can't just tease that. You don't tell the story. It's fine. I don't care.
I have a traumatic story related to Zorro.
So I did enough bad things in my day, but that was the first time, and I ended up doing it twice. But that was the first time I did mushrooms, and I was high on mushrooms, and I didn't like it one bit. So how I did it twice, I don't know why. I can't tell you why, but I basically, me and my friend went back to my parents' house, and watched Zorro, and I hated it because it felt like Zorro lasted like 7 hours. Like, this is the longest movie I've ever watched in my life. Like, I couldn't take it. So to this day, I've never rewatched it, and I never wanted to.
That's the funniest story.
Yeah, I got a bad connection to Zorro. It's interesting.
I thought it was gonna be like it was an ex-girlfriend you watched it with or something.
No.
Shrooms, man.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
It was like a bad trip, and to watch and then to add Zorro into that bad trip was just awful.
But I guess back in the 90s, I guess you didn't have access to lots of different movies. But like, I don't know, if I was gonna do mushrooms, like you'd put on 2001 or something. I don't know. It's so funny. Zorro.
You know what? I don't know what the thinking behind putting on Zorro was, to be honest. But my buddy probably chose it. I bet you he was just like, "Yeah, what's Zorro?" I'm like, okay. We weren't high thinkers back then. There was not high IQ of you must match our movie like a fine wine. You must match it with the hallucinogen.
Yeah.
But let me just say, wasn't the like, to jump back into Goldeneye? I wanted to say, because a couple scenes in the movie, other than the actual intro, but I could point out, I will defend that. Let's say, for instance, the shootout scene in the Russian military archives building.
Yeah.
And eventually gets into the tank. That was a legitimately like really good scene, because first of all, he's ballsy, shoots the train with the tank, like with no. And my point is to defend the seriousness of Goldeneye. There was no goofiness in any of those parts. Like, he shot that tank to run that tank down. Like, he wasn't trying to be a goofball or like be whimsy with it or anything.
I mean, that tank scene.
Skill, I think, of a lot of 90s films, and specifically Martin Campbell, because it is a common thing across his stuff, is the ability to effortlessly switch between these sort of goofy, lighthearted moments and then the serious aspects. Because like Pierce Brosnan, obviously, he's having a lot of fun with this, and he's being goofy. But when the final sort of moment comes, and he's got Trevelyan by the leg, that's a serious moment.
Yeah.
Like you're not thinking of it in terms of these sort of funny sort of things.
Yeah.
You're genuinely interested in it.
Yeah.
And you care. It does it really effortlessly.
Yeah. I think Goldeneye in general, I find it so fascinating because it's like, there hadn't been a Bond movie since the fall of the USSR, and like that's sort of what had, I mean, not literally every movie was about Soviet stuff or whatever, but that was basically what defined Bond as this quote unquote, fighter for the free world sort of thing, to a certain extent. And it's sort of this movie. It's like, okay, well, we can't do that anymore. And this movie sort of sets the tone, I guess, for like the Yeltsin era like attitude towards Russia, which is very funny. The whole Clinton era and everything like that, and it's just, especially now that it's gone back to, we're sort of going back into Cold War attitudes, for a variety of reasons. It's just interesting watching.
That's sort of why we'll get to it later, but that's why Tomorrow Never Dies is interesting, because there's a lot of thematic things there, but we'll wait for that.
Yeah.
But
we should actually. Okay, let's get into Goldeneye properly. Come on, let's do it. So the opening.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say the Tina Turner intro song.
I get the feeling this is going to be a long episode.
Well, at least Goldeneye. The Tina Turner intro song was also solid because again, that was bringing. It was a good Bond. Okay, first of all, let's get this over with. Seeing how this is your first time doing Bond movies on Flooded Cinema, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Bond songs are pretty specific. I actually like quite a few of them.
Yeah.
I think they're all pretty great up until Daniel Craig. Yeah. I don't know if there's a bad one up until him.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
They're all iconic up until Daniel Craig, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So Casino Royale is good. Quantum
right, okay, anyway.
I like.
Let John finish his point. Come on.
Skyfall.
Shut up.
Oh, that's okay. No, it's okay. I'm listening. No. I'm with you on that, and I just think the Tina Turner song was solid, and even I personally think it was always. I think it's up there with some of the. I think it's top 5-6 songs of all the Bond songs.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great opening.
Especially paired with the visuals, because we talked about this a bit when we watched it, but a lot of the Skyfall was one that started this for Daniel Craig's, but it's like just these shots that are handed off to just CGI departments to just do random 3D models that they combine with particle effects and vaguely time to the music, and that's it. That's a base of some imagery actually within the film, whereas the opening for Goldeneye is because when Trevelyan and Bond meet for the first time again, they're in this.
That scene is so
graveyard
good as well. Yeah,
they're in this graveyard of Soviet monuments.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, and then that's the entire sort of thematic thing for the opening.
Yeah.
Is these
What is Bond in the post USSR era?
Yeah. The destroyed monuments of Stalin and Lenin and Marx, and then obviously the sexy women.
Yeah, important.
And
very important.
Soviet guns. It's crucial. And the hammer and sickle, either falling or being destroyed or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything was being destroyed and fallen, and they're in all the relics and old statues of the Soviet era. Now it's all gone. It's like they were in a graveyard for the Soviet era, and that he's a good villain, by the way. 006, right? It's not.
He's. I would describe him as like. He's not like the best villain ever, but he's a really well written character. Like he's a good character, more than he is a villain.
Think about it. They stole the most high-tech helicopter just so they were protected on the way out of their first Goldeneye attack, and then they used it to just try and kill Bond later. Like the most probably expensive helicopter ever. And then also I don't know if we want to get into it yet or not, but he's a Cossack, and there's an interesting thing.
Yes.
That's such
I
a
suppose
funny
we'll-
thing as well. Like, you could make a movie where, like, ethnic grievances were just that's like, yep, that's a thing. That's normal. Like to have an ethnic grievance in like these, because like in a movie now, you can't really do these ethnic grievances in that same sort of way.
No.
Yeah.
And that's what
Which
makes
is
it.
interesting.
He'd be because they give him a genuinely sympathetic sort of portrayal. Like they never try to necessarily brush off what happened to his family.
Yeah.
It's like they from what I remember, they pretty much acknowledge that what the British did was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, he doesn't have given the right to steal loads of money. But
I think it does.
Yeah, he's crazy. Yeah, it's like, so they also use the idea, like, I always found that fascinating, even long before I knew what the Cossacks were. I'd watch Goldeneye over and over growing up or something, and every time I watched it, and he would say, in the train, he would say, didn't you know he's a Leon Cossacks? He'll betray you. And I'm thinking, what do you mean? Like, his ethnicity will just, like, point towards, like, he has to betray. And, yeah, like, it's interesting, like, he... Like and even like 006 Trevelyan doesn't deny it. Essentially,
Yeah.
he's just like, "Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of money. Don't worry." But yeah, it's a big talking point. Like the Russian guy that he goes and sees, I forget his name, who ends up becoming kind of a helper of him, his criminal friend.
Hagrid.
what is it? Yeah.
Yeah, Hagrid.
Arumov or no the
No, Arumov
him
is
and
the general. Yeah,
the
yeah.
general, yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
remember the
Arumov-
other character's name.
The mob boss. Yeah.
Arumov is painted as, he's literally said as he is a basically old school Soviet iron
Yeah.
fist man.
Yeah.
And that's like the whole king is like he's so it's the movie still kind of has that whole touch of like, yeah, he's an old Soviet boy, he wants to go that route, and you have the Cossacks but the Cossacks, interesting enough, Cossacks were like kind of the good guys. I mean, they were defending the people against the Bolshevik Revolution, like they were fighting the
Yeah.
Bolsheviks,
Yeah.
and they were
that's what they mention is that
And then they got betrayed
the
by
Lien's
the Western
Cossacks were
powers.
sided with the Nazis during World War II
right.
to fight the communists.
Mm.
And when they saw that the Nazis were losing, they sort of surrendered, gave themselves over to the Allies in the hopes that that the Allies would help them fight the Bolsheviks,
Yeah.
assuming that not the Bolsheviks at this point, assuming that rather than what we actually did, which was just sit around and leave the communists do whatever they wanted to. They assumed that.
Interesting.
Yeah, they assumed that we would straight away fight them after World War
Yeah.
II.
It's almost as if this whole communist thing was started in London, but
Yeah.
no one asked me.
Yeah.
No one asked me. I'm no
It's
Jay
almost
Dyer.
like it's almost like there's a book on my bookshelf that says
Yeah.
the Bolshevik Revolution was funded by Wall Street. Interesting. And it was done by an academic, a professor, tenure professor in California.
But this is a movie show.
But
No,
but
I
then,
found that whole thing interesting. I do find it interesting because
well,
they're
the
using...
next part, the British then accept their surrender and then deport them to the Soviet Union,
Right.
and then they all get killed,
Yeah.
which
And the
is what
Soviets-
they did. It's the British are good at that because like the Polish pilots were pretty crucial to the Battle of Britain.
Mm-hmm.
And so these Poles assumed that they would at least be allowed to stay in Britain because there wasn't that many of them, these pilots. After the war, and then Britain says, sorry, deports them back. They all get picked up by the Soviets and executed.
That's ironic because now there's like so many Poles in the UK.
Yeah,
But, they couldn't.
they
couldn't
got
let
their
them go.
revenge. They got their revenge in the end.
Yeah. Now they're cleaning everyone's houses. Damn.
They're either
you know-
stonemasons or house cleaners.
The cool thing is about Bond 2 in that film, well, this is what I love. Like, one thing that always stuck out from the moment I watched it the very first time, so that'd have been young, was how that woman, his Bond girl woman, the Russian,
Oh yeah,
she
Natalia.
yeah, Natalia cannot figure out. Oh man, sorry, I'm blanking on the other character's name. The hacker guy.
Yeah. Boris.
Boris.
Yeah.
Boris. Yeah, I can't figure out Boris's
Code.
riddles every time. So she's like, "Oh, I can't get his riddle when they're in the train." And he says, she goes to Bond, "I can't solve it." And he goes, "What?" And he goes, "You sit on it, but you can't take it with you." And instantly, he's like, "Chair." And then Like, I just love that. Like, Bond is like, and he was dead serious. He was like, what did you just asked me what a chair is? Like, it was just so
Yeah.
simple for him. She just was like, I cannot figure it out.
It's because Boris had always done it so they were like dirty.
Yeah.
Like, and so she was
Boobs or
assuming,
something.
it's like probably my ass or something, you know.
Yeah.
That's a good
But it
point.
was
And
just
then you have,
there.
yeah, that's a good point. But then
He's
it's
been
the dirty-
priming her to think of like sexual things.
Yeah, that's a good point. But then how does Dirty Bond, the man whore, how does he know that it's the
'Cause
chair?
he's pure. He's pure of heart.
Yeah. He might be a man whore.
Yeah,
but
that's
he's
true. I-
pure of
Alright.
heart, man.
Okay. So let's discuss
You
that.
want to start at the beginning of the film?
Yeah. Let's actually get into it. 25
It's
minutes
hard because
in.
there's so many good things that you just want to jump around to.
Let's at least discuss the opening, and then we can sort of just jump
Alright.
around because I think,
It opens at a dam.
and this is probably one of my favorite openings to an action movie ever. It's just so awesome, just like him jumping down the dam, and it's this great big wide shot.
Yeah,
It's so good.
Because it starts off with there's no music.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
he's running.
it's just the wind, the sound of his footsteps, and his breath. You don't see his face; it's just his legs running along, and then you get that great shot of him running around the edge and then dropping the rope in front of the camera.
Yeah.
You know, it's this perfect little little movement, and whereas a lot of times directors these days they do that in multiple shots,
Yeah.
whereas Martin Campbell he sticks it there, does it. He lets you actually watch it happen.
Yeah.
And then he jumps off, and if I remember correctly, it goes a bit quiet even.
Yeah, it does.
Like it just lets you hear it.
Yeah. Well, the music doesn't kick in until way later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
This is a film that knows the power of music.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, it doesn't kick in until the plane, like till he's escaping with the planes. I think.
Oh,
So,
and
yeah.
that's so
And then
awesome.
the actual Bond theme doesn't, like the proper Bond theme, doesn't kick in until the tank chase.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is he has the balls to just wait and
Yeah.
wait, because that's like halfway through the movie almost.
Yeah. But the opening, like, and then he kills the guy that's on the toilet.
Yeah, and that's the first time you see his face.
Yeah. Oh, what does he say?
Is that shit-eating grin where he's
Yeah.
what is it?
Oh.
Sorry, forgot to knock.
Yeah.
He comes in through the air vent system over the toilet, and there's Soviet guys, not
Ooh.
Soviet, it's Russian guys reading a newspaper. And he drops down in front of it, and he pulls it down and goes, "Sorry, forgot to knock," and then punches him in the face.
Yeah.
And that's it's a perfect introduction to Pierce Brosnan as Bond.
Yeah. I would say
great.
he's maybe the most aloof Bond.
He's probably the most emotionally distant, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of just.
But it works. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that's. But I mean, yeah, I think Timothy Dalton was pretty aloof as well.
That's true, yeah.
That's why that's kind of what made me realize for the first time watching it this roundabout, realizing that I felt like he was a lot like Timothy Dalton, which I don't find that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing No,
and
it's
it's
a good
interesting.
intro.
He has like I mean, obviously they look different, but they have a similar, dark hair, similar, like sort of longer head sort of thing. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, which is pretty much the usual James Bond, Sean Connery, George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton, and Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
You've just got Roger Moore and Daniel Craig that break it a bit.
Yeah.
But Roger Moore's still kind of dark, though.
Well, he's...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was music, to be honest, actually, even in the whole... I think the entire intro, there's no music. Because when he gets into the plane, when he's running, yeah, it's complete silence, just like the bungee jump that he does.
Yeah, and then it's when the plane soars overhead, then it cuts to the opening credits, with the music.
Yeah, and they recopied that. Like, they always I don't know, I can't think of a Bond film prior to that if they did that, because I don't think they did. I think that was a new, cool scene for an intro, getting that plane to keep diving, then barely hold off. And then they literally recopied that in Spectre, the beginning of Spectre.
Yeah.
With the helicopter.
Which
so
is the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So like, they was a good job. Like Goldeneye started a new thing, and yeah, like that plane scene, and also there was really good tension. I really always stuck out to me his acting when Trevelyan gets killed, right when they shoot him.
Yeah.
He's like clearly pissed off, like he's kind of sweating, and then
Yeah.
from there he just loses it and just goes ape and shoots the
barrels, and all the
Yeah.
barrels come down. That's great. Yeah.
yeah. It's great.
And I love that the first time you hear 006, like Alec Trevelyan talk, is he speaks Russian and he's in the dark, and it's like a good primer to the fact that he's going to be the villain later on.
And he's Russian.
Yeah.
Good
You know,
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Bond, after he punches it in the face,
Yeah.
he then meets up with 006.
Yeah.
And what is it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what it is. Is it like what exactly is it? Is the facility? It's at some sort of a dam.
I
but
think
they've
it's the
got barrels of
chemicals
something.
or something.
Some sort of chemical processing plant for something
Yeah.
that they're going to destroy.
Yeah, just because.
And they're placing charges that are meant to be set for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
However, the alarms go off.
And so it really sets it for 3.
Because this is set during the Soviet Union still.
Yeah.
This scene, and the Soviet guards arrive, and led by General, whose name I can't pronounce, Arumov, and they sort of get into a firefight with Bond placing the charges whilst Trevelyan 006 is trying to sort of hold them off.
Yeah.
And whilst Bond is placing the charges for 6 minutes, Trevelyan gets captured. He sort of calls out to me, and he doesn't respond.
Yeah.
Which is it's doing that is I've forgotten the proper name of the technique, but you could just show Trevelyan getting captured,
Yeah.
and then have it revealed to Bond after. But what you do is you have Bond initiate, and then there's no response, which creates intrigue.
Yeah.
It's one of these sort of simple technical things that you do to create interest.
Yeah. And I think that's what I love about this movie is, it's not artsy-fartsy Tarkovsky or anything, but it's like it's a solid action movie, and then there are a lot of little details that subconsciously, to the audience prime you for things, and that's what just makes it flow so well, and it's shot so well. The cinematography is great.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, but well, not earlier, but when we were talking about it in our own time, was that basically every shot in this film, you could just have that as like a desktop background.
That's the judge. That's the judge for if it's a good
Yeah.
movie or not.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, no,
And
there's
this is the because Martin Campbell and this cinematographer, they also work together on Casino Royale. It's the same team, and I'm pretty sure you also work with him on Mask of Zorro. So like they're a.
Maybe I need to have you back
really
on
good
to
creative
Mask
team.
of Zorro, John, to
I like
confront your
Mask of
fears.
Yeah, well, we have to. We are having an intervention with you.
yeah, okay, I'll do it. You had me watch Martin, the craziest 70s.
Oh,
So
that's a good movie. That was a good movie. Anyway, yeah, go check out that episode as well, Martin, when we discuss Martin. But yes, continue.
Is that
Goldeneye.
the one where the guy thinks he's a vampire?
Well, that's the whole crux of the movie.
All right.
Yeah.
Is he or is he not? That's the whole point of the movie.
We won't get into it.
Okay,
But,
so I want to say after the intro, we get into the.
I haven't finished with the intro.
Well, oh, okay.
Okay, keep
What
going,
else?
Jack. Give us your speech. Give us your lecture.
God damn it.
Hey, no blasphemy.
I'm sorry. But, yeah, so Trevelyan gets captured. Bond sets it. Bond then changes it quickly to 3 minutes.
Yep.
And this is sort of an example of good character work just through action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of Bond sort of realizing they have to get out of there fast and everything. And literally being sort of willing to maybe kill his partner.
Yeah.
Because, like, he doesn't know if 006 is going to be able to get out of this. And, of course, he doesn't. And Arumov actually decides to just shoot him in the head.
Yeah.
Because and he tells Bond not to sort of surrender to them. So
Yeah.
and then Bond grab some of these barrels filled with explosive material or whatever.
Video game
And sort of-
barrels.
Yeah, these on this trolley, and just sort of slowly inches across the room, and it's sort of funny, and especially because it doesn't have any music, obviously, so you just get this squeaky of the wheels across this floor as they all sort of awkwardly point their guns at him, and there's this great shot of where the camera's sort of surrounded by the Soviets looking at him, and you just all see their guns just all turn uniformly on him.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
that's
the-
great.
It's a great shot, and then there's
And
like
when the
one,
German- Oh, sorry, Jeff.
and then like one soldier fires his gun, and luckily he doesn't hit anything, and then the general just turns around and shoots him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like usually I hate the trope of bad guys killing their own men.
Yeah.
It's kind of dumb. However, it's one that works in this situation because you literally have explosive barrels, and this guy
Yeah, it's literally
Almost
so
killed you
dumb.
all.
Yeah.
Gonna kill him, yeah. And that's what I mean. I like when the general says, he just kind of laughs and smirks and says, "You can't win,"
Yeah.
and then Bond proves him again, and yeah, it's just great. Like that was.
and then he shoots the locks off the containers holding them above their heads,
yeah.
and hits them with it, and then jumps onto the conveyor belt to the outside,
Yeah.
and then just starts fucking sprinting down the runway after this plane that's taking off.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That's like it gives
And
me
then
chills still just thinking
He
about
manages
it.
to get into the plane,
True.
and you're sort of thinking, oh, he's in the, he'll just kick the guy out, and then he'll fly off. But then they both get pushed out, and they're being chased after by motorcycles, and they sort of hit one of the motorcyclists, and so now this plane is going off without a pilot,
Yeah.
so it's still going, and he has to catch up to it on a motorcycle. And then, of course, again, you're just sort of thinking, oh, he'll get it at the last moment, He'll jump on just before it takes off.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. It goes off the cliff, and he just sort of has to jump off after it. He just rides his motorcycle off, then
It's
jumps
so
off
awesome. It's so awesome.
and then has to, streamline his body and catch up to it, and get into it whilst it's falling. It's really great.
So good.
And this movie also has lots of good miniatures.
Yes.
I think it
Yes.
has good use of sort of matte paintings. Because, like, when Bond is falling, even just down that ravine, trying to catch up to that plane, that still looks pretty great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not sure exactly how they do it, whether it's some sort of early compositing sort of thing, or if it's literally just having a projection behind him. But either way, it looks quite good. And then you have, he pulls up, and then you have the great wide shot of the miniature sort of back end of the dam exploding, and then the plane just flying away, and then you get Tina Turner's great music.
Yeah. It's so good, and
Yeah.
like, because it's nose diving, and he's just sort of trying to pull it up, and I love that opening so much. I would say like that and the opening to Dark Knight Rises. They're like two openings that just stay in my head.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's
Yeah,
like they're completely different in sort of what is interesting about them, but as like cold opens, as like almost as shorts, they just both stick in my head for some reason. They're great.
It's a good point that you make too, and that intro, because I don't have as much dissectiveness to the next movie and its intro, or any intro for that matter. But the Goldeneye intro is one of those. I don't know. It's repeatable. Like it's one of those ones you can watch. I could just watch it.
I could watch. I mean, I would prefer to watch that like 10 times than watch probably any of the Daniel Craig like Bond films, like some of the later ones. I'll just watch an hour of repeat of that intro.
It's almost like you could almost just like publish that as its own like short film.
Yeah.
Because it pretty much has like its own self-contained narrative.
Yeah.
That's right.
Whereas say Tomorrow Never Dies isn't really. It sort of is. But
It's
doesn't quite
the
stand
thing
as
is,
well.
yeah, it was. I have a lot of problems with the intro of Tomorrow Never Dies. I just thought it was it was such a typical, like, Tomorrow Never Dies is like how I would imagine a typical, like, or like a more, yep, we're doing another Bond movie, here we go, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, look, Tomorrow Never Dies isn't a bad movie by any means, but it's just, I think it was just riding off the, like, if it had have been years since I'd watched Goldeneye, and then I watched Tomorrow Never Dies, I'd be like, oh, this is great. But it was literally like 2 days or something I watched Goldeneye before, and so it was like, oh, this kind of sucky.
Yeah.
But no, we
It
shouldn't
just
jump
doesn't
ahead.
have-
We shouldn't jump ahead too much. This
No.
is getting out of hand. This is gonna be 3 hours. This episode, isn't it?
We already talked about Tina Turner. Can I jump to the Aston Martin car I think that's a DB9. I'm not sure, but it's an Aston Martin.
Oh yeah.
Then right after the intro, you got him on an Aston Martin, ripping around
With Moneypenny.
not Moneypenny. She's another lady who's there to evaluate him.
She looks a
And-
bit like Moneypenny.
She does look a bit like him, and she's like weak and very like, "Ah," and he's going around, and then comes in like, honestly, it's an iconic scene because you have an Aston Martin, which is the old Bond, and then they bring in this like, and I like cars, this like one of my favorite cars ever. I think it's like a Ferrari 355.
It's a beautiful
it's
car. It's a beautiful car.
Yeah. Red, beautiful car, and then it's just like, it's like a really good car chase. And I mean, there's good car chases prior to that in movies, but like I'm saying, they did all that intro well, and then they do this car chase really
yeah.
well.
And I would say that is one of the best car chases ever, because it's literally flirting as a car chase, and it's unbelievable.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
I'd say that is in that movie, the most humor being expelled in that movie in general is that scene, because it's kind of jokes the whole way through. Because even that part where there's lots of parts, but they pass where they pass the bikers, and then they go by so fast that the pedals like spin them and knock them all over. It's like British humor, And,
he like waves to on a top like, oh, you go first. And
That's another thing is
her name.
His name is Xenia Onatop.
Exactly, and it ends the scene when he's about to he's now gonna like sleep with this woman in the car that's there to evaluate him after the car chase, and he pops a button and doesn't champagne come up? That's awesome. Like it's goofiness. Like that was the part. Like of all the parts of the movie, I think that's like clearly the most goofiest.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even feel that goofy though, just because it's so like technically done well. I love it's just so funny. Like he's literally flirting with this other woman in front of the woman in the car with him, by like street racing, by drifting, flirting by like drifting, and then he ends up sleeping with the woman that he was ignoring.
Exactly.
He's a Chad. Man.
It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
Very Chad. Just goes to show what Bond is capable of.
And then, of course, we meet on top at the casino.
I don't know.
We have to figure out whether Xenia Onatop or Pussy Galore is the better name.
I think
Which one?
Well, I mean, that's the thing I find. That was like the one thing I thought was almost absurd with with the Austin Power movies. Is got a lot of vagina.
Yeah.
And it's like, the thing is, the actual Bond movies that are even crazy, like just Pussy Galore, like come on, man, that's crazy. Like...
Pussy Galore was a lesbian, by the way, who was linked to a bunch of other lesbian pilots. And then the worst one, Holly Goodhead in Moonraker. So her name is Dr. Goodhead. And on a top, honestly, it was kind of not even that bad in my opinion. And then like the whole casino thing.
You're into on the top?
Or she says her name, and then she also like they say their drinks, and she says like straight up with a twist, and they're like so cheesy. But I just want to point out that never in my entire life have I understood what game they were playing, and I always just thought they were playing poker, and I know it's not poker, but
Baccarat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Baccarat. Yeah.
But he'd say things like, me and my older brother used to watch the movie when we were younger, and we'd make jokes when he would say things like "spleemy" or something. He'd say like "spleemy," Like, I didn't even know what he meant, but he would say something to the guy, and the guy would, like, give a nod, and it was just so dead serious. And I was, like, me and my brother would laugh because we had no idea what was going on. But it'd be like, they would just say obscure language that we don't know what's going on, and then it would be like they would show the cards as if you're going to understand who's going to win or lose, and then Anna Top's just super angry that she lost. But, like, as an audience member, I'm pretty sure most of us are like, well, what happened? How did she win or lose?
Baccarat's not very popular in, I guess, America. But this is a completely unrelated story. But one time
we were both about to do unrelated things.
Yeah, okay. Oh man, this is gonna be so. All right, we need to speed this up a little bit. But anyway, let me tell my anecdote. One time I was at a casino and I was with a friend who, through connections, I won't get into that, was able to get me into like it's called the Mahogany Room. It's like where the top gamblers go. And it's just basically all Chinese guys. And so I was watching Chinese guys. I was like looking at the chips on the table, and they were betting like 10K a hand on this baccarat. It was insane. I was like looking at the table. They've got like 10K like in front of them on like. I was just like, damn, that's crazy. Just these Chinese guys. And the thing is, so you're not allowed to smoke indoors. In Australia basically. But for some reason, this casino, there's some bizarre loophole technicality where, because they've got some certain particular air filtration system, you're allowed to smoke. So it's just like all these Chinese like millionaires betting like thousands and thousands of dollars on like hands of baccarat, smoking cigarettes in this room. It was crazy. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
That was my my craziest casino experience.
What a vibe.
What was your unrelated story, Jack?
No, it doesn't work there.
Have I?
You've stopped me from being annoying.
My story was too cool. You can't tell me your lame story about like whatever it was. All right, where are we up to?
For speeding this up, should we at least get to another important part of Goldeneye, which is the introduction of M? Because we've gone
we have to.
Favorite.
Look, I'll say this much about M. This is my thoughts, and then you guys go ahead. She works in the Daniel Craig movies for a variety of reasons, which should be obvious if you've got because of the tone of those movies. But I felt like, I don't know who I would have as M in these movies, but it's almost like they didn't even need an M. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he's just in a scene, she's annoying, he's just like, okay, whatever, and just does whatever he wants.
I don't know if the previous M had passed away or not. Because Desmond Llewellyn still plays Q, and he was the original, all the way back with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
I would say it doesn't matter. I would say that doesn't. I think the plan was. I think I hate to say it, but I'll just say it. When it comes to like the decision that suddenly M is a woman, those are decisions made beyond like director and everything. Like those are big boy decisions, because those are that like. Let's all admit that movies obviously, without getting too deep, they influence culture. And all I'm saying is M becoming a woman was a plan because we were shifting towards a new era, and not that it's not the most important thing in the world, but you know what? To be honest, yeah, she's a whatever. Her acting skills are fine, but you're totally right. In Goldeneye especially, she plays like zero role as like.
One scene. It's literally the scene that's shot the worst in that office.
Yeah.
It's great. It's really weird because it is literally the worst shot scene as well. Like you can tell the director was like, "Oh, let's get this fucking scene over and done with." Like, because every other scene, like even the scene where he meets Hagrid at the bar, like that scene's shot so well. Like the way that he sits on Hagrid's like sitting there in the background. You've got the women on the stage, and like everything is like there's so much detail and depth. It's like. This movie reminds me almost as like if Scorsese did a Bond film or something, like the liveliness to it. And yeah, it's just funny, that one scene with M, it's just like he walks into the office, she's like, be a good boy, don't do anything naughty, and then he's like, yeah, whatever, and just leaves, just pieces out.
Maybe that's why. Maybe it was like maybe there was, for whatever reason, like I'm speculating, but you're totally right that scene's so useless compared to the detail and thought put into the rest of the scenes that maybe it's something he didn't really plan out but was forced to do and had to do that. Because the fact that she isn't, like, even if you go to the other Bond movies after this, she's in more than one scene, so like she becomes more of a role even in Tomorrow Never Dies.
She's
like,
fine in Tomorrow Never Dies. Honestly, she's fine in that. It's just in this one, it's just like is so out of place. Like it could have worked better as they could have done it as just a voice. Like he gets a voice recording, like this is M speaking and it's a woman. That would have been that would have worked better. Like he's like imagine he's like making out with some woman and then he gets a voice message from M like this and like, oh, you have to do this, this and this, and he's like, yep, and then the woman's like, who's that? And he's like, oh, whoever. That would have been a better scene.
You're right. That'd have been a pretty cool scene.
But
no, so we can move past that scene. We just wanted to address that she's the new M, and that's obviously was a big change for Bond. Is because here's the thing, Bond is literally defined by manliness, misogyny, and sexism, and the fact that Goldeneye, being such a good movie, starts the shift towards somehow mixing the two of like feminism. Like it's so stupid. Like that, but that's the stupidity of our world. But I mean, like they just got to do it in everything. So they do that, and of course we know that later as it goes down, it's gotten, here we are at the new Bond. So like it was the beginning of the end in a way, but at a certain point, not the beginning of the end for the whole movies, but that is the beginning of the end of where we are now with Bond, which is like I'm not going to watch the newest one. I have no desire to. But
you watched it, didn't you, Jack? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad.
James Bond dies.
Yeah, so it's bad.
He gets infected with a virus that's been genetically programmed to only kill his girlfriend and child.
What?
And they literally specifically set up in the movie that he has an EMP device, and he never thinks to use it to disable these sort of drone virus things. And MI6 are gonna destroy the base that he's on.
Wait, so he's injected with with nanobots?
Nanobot virus thing, yeah.
Huh. Okay,
And,
no comment.
And yeah, and the plot of the movie is that the villain has programmable viruses that he can use to kill specific people.
Interesting. Cool. Very interesting.
But yeah, the MI6 are going to destroy the base that he's on. And he's like, oh my god, it has blast doors, so I have to stay here to open them. And he has loads of time, and he's like, oh my god, I can never see my children again. Doesn't think to use his EMP device on them. Doesn't think that maybe Q could figure it out, that'll be worthwhile to just wait it out and see if they can fix it.
Q, played by that twink guy.
Q literally just raised him and said, nah, we probably can't fix it. And so he just stays on the island and gets blown up. And then I figured, maybe it's that, it'll destroy the whole island so he can't get away. But he has heaps of time, and it literally just destroys this specific part with the base, so he could just walk over to the other side of the island.
No.
It's like James Bond has to become a fucking retard to die. Like he just loses his 50 IQ points and dies.
Well,
yeah,
that's the Daniel Craig era for you.
That's the end of Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Becomes a retard and dies.
Where are we up to?
We're moving on now to...
We're up to 20 minutes into the film.
Alright.
So and then we got to the end scene, and now don't we go to Russia? Do we go to the Siberia?
Yeah, he meets the CIA guy.
They steal the helicopter. On a top, strangles people with her legs.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
During sex.
Interesting.
But yeah, they have to steal this helicopter that has EMP protection.
Look, her character is gratuitous, but it is funny. It is well written.
Yeah.
Like like part of me can't condone it, but part of me is like, as someone that appreciates cinema, it is a good character. Like they don't give her much to do except for like.
I like the hot lady that strangles people with her legs because I'm a cinephile. I'm a cultured cinema fan. That's why I like her.
You're looking for a lady
no other
reason to be able to strangle you with her legs. So.
Okay, moving on. Yeah, he meets
Yeah, and I
the
like-
CIA
I like
agent.
how they had to. This was still a movie where they had to tell you what EMP means.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
You know,
Because now
like-
everyone plays video games. Like, EMP? You know what an EMP is, right?
It's like they just say EMPs, and like Daniel Craig's films have used them a bit, and they just say EMP. They don't give you a definition because everybody fucking knows what an EMP is.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good explanation. Honestly, let's also say that's a great Bond weapon. They overdid it, like it got very Hollywooded, because I don't think when you EMP blast the building has to necessarily blow up. I don't think that's how it works. But
No,
it's a good weapon.
but
I
yeah,
suppose the weapon itself is more of a like that weapon in the movie. That is giving you a lot of, same with Onatop. Those are like really classic Bond-esque items that go along with the franchise, because you can take, we've talked about all these good scenes which are so good and done, directed so well, and cinematography. But yeah, those are like classic, like, well, come on, we gotta have an EMP weapon that doesn't just like turn off your electronics, it blows them up.
But I mean, I would say, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I won't keep talking about Onatop. But, no, anyway.
but
Janus
so
group,
they-
I thought that was, you know, cute little subtle, well, not that, I mean, if you know mythology, it's not that subtle, but, you know, Janus group, two-headed thing, so it's good.
Yeah.
And I've got, in my note, I've got M sucks, annoying. And then, what have I got written next? Oh, the American guy. Unless you've got anything else to say, we're jumping to the CIA agent.
Do it.
I find it funny, like,
So the plot of this movie is that
well,
rogue
people
rough
can
in
watch
general.
the movie. What difference is it? We don't need to give them the
No,
Wikipedia
no.
summary of the plot.
Alright.
And then Bond meets a CIA agent, and he's like, you know, this gruff, you know, not very handsome guy. And I just thought that was very funny, like this subtle, crass, ugly American Amerimut type guy.
I'm American. Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. It's like, you don't take this seriously, do you? Basically, it was what like Bond was saying, like with the codes and everything. I just thought it was so funny, considering like his behavior 90% of the time.
Yeah.
He's just like giving this American guy shit for how laissez-faire he is. Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Yeah, and it's also interesting, like not really too meaningful, but that guy who plays him, Joe Don Baker, I think was the actor. He was one of the bad guys in The Living Daylights, which was the first Timothy Dalton movie. Yeah, and he was a.
Oh, he's in heaps of stuff. That guy.
Sorry?
He's great. Joe Don Baker. He's in heaps of stuff. He's great.
Yeah, and he's like an arms dealer in that movie. So it's funny, like they reused the actor to now be Jack Wade, his CIA I suppose contact or whatever.
Yeah.
Which
That's
Jack Wade.
Usually it's Felix Leiter.
That's right. That's what I was going to
guy's
ask.
usual name,
That's right.
but they change it to Jack Wade.
Yeah, but he's like a goofy kind of guy. It's good. Yeah, it's a good contrast. Goofy American, right?
Yeah.
And then they meet what's his? They meet Hagrid.
Hagrid. I don't remember. I
Robbie
don't know the actor's
Coltrane.
name, and I don't know the character's name.
Robbie Coltrane as Valentine Zukovsky.
Hagrid. I'm not going to learn that actor's name. I'm sorry.
Hagrid.
What else has he been in? This and Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, so I'm going to call him Hagrid.
He's British TV shows. I'll bet you anything. He's been.
Oh,
in
yeah,
lots
he's-
of
Yeah,
British-
he had his own detective show, I think, called Cracker.
Oh, I'm getting. Yeah. Is this show just like us showing off like little connections we know, like who's in
Yep.
what?
Yeah.
But
No.
they're-
Okay, but there's a good comment when he goes to meet Hagrid. That's where he said, "Who dragged in the cat?" And he's like, "Dragging in cat." And he turns around, it's his girlfriend singing just terribly.
yeah, that's great. And then he gets embarrassed and tells her to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, he shoots him like right by his crotch, threatens his life, and then tells her to beat it. I think that was like a legitly good. That's a good funny scene. And that's Minnie Driver. That lady was actress Minnie
Yeah.
Driver, like nobody at the time.
Oh yeah, true.
But then we get into business, right? Because they're talking about he wants to know about who this, because it comes down to what I want to understand is Trevelyan as his. What was his villain name? He had it was like a Greek mythology name.
Oh, Janus Screw.
Janus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Janus is
Two-Face.
a
And so-
two-faced god, yeah.
That's like Two-Face. So he, what was his business before he figures out who it is and everything? We get to that when he's talking to Hagrid. What is his business? What is Janus's like? How is he known and like how?
He's an
That's
arms
what I-
dealer. He's an arms dealer in post-Soviet countries.
Russia. Yeah.
Lord of War action. Okay, so he's Nicolas
Yeah.
Cage. I got you.
Yeah, that's a good movie. We can't.
Another
we need to
great
stay on
opening.
track. We're staying on track. We're staying on track.
Let's talk about the great opening of Lord of War.
We should do. I will definitely do a Nicolas Cage month at some point and do like 10.
Every single film.
I tried to do that once, but he has done so many movies. But he's got a lot of good movies.
You need money. You need money.
Man's gotta eat. Yeah.
There's that new one coming out, The Burden of Unbearable, like of Talent, of Unbearable Talent, where it's like a guy
The
kidnaps
unbearable weight
him.
of massive talent. I think.
Yeah, I really want to watch that. But anyway, yeah, he's an arms dealer, and then they meet, which is an amazing scene. They're in the grave, like this, effectively the graveyard of the Soviet Union, and it's sort of like, you know, it's the end of this era of what they were when they were spies. And it's like, okay, well, how do we proceed from here? And it's, you know, it's the two different paths. So Bond continued in his loyalty, and then Trevelyan realizes like, okay, what were we even doing this whole time? And he sort of has become cynical and is now, you know, an arms dealer, which is, you know, perfectly reasonable pursuit, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's when you get the reveal that he's a Lian's Cossack.
Yeah, I love that's a reveal. Like it's such a nice piece of the movie that it is. You know, it brings in this history to it, and it brings in something more grand to the plot and what's going on. You know, like whereas, you know, Tomorrow Never Dies, the villain, do we even really get what his deal is?
That's what. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Is like, sorry, let me go
is
back.
evil.
Trevelyan is exactly what you're saying. That's such a like he is a well thought out plot point. While the Goldeneye satellite is less of a well thought out plot point, and more akin to just a Bond trope. Same with Onatop, done well. I'm not bad mouthing. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
they're good. They're solid Bond elements.
exactly. But Trevelyan was like a really good bad guy, and then yes, that's what I mean. You get the sudden decline as we go now forward into the Bonds. You just get these like generic Bond bad guy, which they can be fun and everything, but like yeah, Trevelyan and just it makes the movie
Trevelyan is an actual like character.
Yeah.
much
He's
more
a
depth to the
character
movie.
first, and then like
Yeah.
a villain second, basically.
Yeah. I find it so the Daniel
They
Craig
don't
like
get him to just do random villain things, if that makes sense.
the Daniel Craig casting of villains is like so pathetic. It's just like, oh, who was like a bad guy in a popular movie in the last 5 years? Let's get him. And it's just like, oh, Anton Chigurh, fucking Christoph Waltz.
Mads Mikkelsen as Le Chiffre in the first film
He's
is
great.
great.
Oh,
He's also similar. See, this is Martin Campbell again. He's a character sort of first,
yeah.
and then a villain second. Because
Yeah,
he's
that's
like,
right.
he has like an asthma attack.
Yeah.
His character's an asthmatic. It's not
Yeah.
very scary.
There's a reason he's the only villain that people remember, despite the fact that, you know, Javier Bardem and Christoph Waltz played villains in the Craig Bond films. The only one people even think about is Mads Mikkelsen, because he was so like the character and his acting was so great. Whereas, anyway, we can't keep jumping around to Craig, talking shit about the Craig movies. So he meets him. Oh, and there's also the bath scene where he fights Onatop, which is great. He says, make some joke about safe sex, which is classic.
No more foreplay. And then he cocks the gun. He says, "No more foreplay." And he cocks the gun.
And he hurts her by like thrusting his hips into walls because she's wrapped around him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Just-
puts her on the hot stones in the sauna eventually. Yeah,
He burns her ass with
I just love, it's just, I don't know.
Honestly,
There's something always comedic about, anyway, no, I won't go into it. what else have I got written here?
Yeah, so he gets shot in the neck with a tranquilizer during the discussion,
That's right.
and they place him and the only survivor of the attack on the Russian Goldeneye base
Oh, in the helicopter.
in the helicopter, and that's when they meet for the
Which is
first
also
time.
smart.
Yes.
Because it
And
was
she
the
is great as well.
general-
I like her. She's
general-
very cute.
She's a babe.
Yeah.
She's great.
And that's a side note, sorry, of just good plot point, is that how they tracked her down was not through Trevelyan and anything else. It was the general that went after that. So, like, he's part of the bad guy, the arms dealer, Janice. But it just, I like that. That's cool. That's more depth, because it was like, that was his doing, was tracking her down. And, of course, they used her weakness, which is her coworker.
Yeah, and they have give her a whole they give her a whole scene where she's cleverly thought, oh, I won't use, let me go to this random place to use a computer, and she thought, oh, I can trust Boris.
Yeah, she just she goes to I forget if there's a proper name, but like a tech store or whatever, and just asks
It's like an IBM dealer or something.
yeah, IBM. That's it. That's the specific one. Goes
Well,
to IBM
yeah,
dealer
totally.
and can I have a look at your models? Or just I'm thinking about buying them. Give me some time alone with them just to check them out.
And that's the thing. Literally everyone, I'd say Urumov is maybe the least fleshed out character, but everyone aside from him,
I think he pulled through. I think by his performance, the actor's quite good.
And you have to admit, Flooded, you have to admit he's a tough villain to kill in Goldeneye 64.
That's true. That is very true. I'll give him that much. I'll say Trevelyan gave me oh man, Cradle. That was
so tough.
Cradle is the hardest level. I remember that was like my young days as a gamer. That was a hard challenge. Playing that Cradle level.
It is a hard level, yeah. Oh, and also when she's with Boris, once he meets Boris in the store, where do they go to solve all the issues and have her kidnapped? An Orthodox church.
Yes, that was an interesting deal.
A rare Orthodox church glimpse in a Bond film. I'm sure it's happened. I don't know if it's happened before, but it's the only time I remember.
Is there a movie where he goes to Greece? That'd be cool as.
I don't know.
I don't actually know.
That'd be
I don't know
awesome.
Well, From Russia with Love.
Just have a Greek villain.
You gotta watch From Russia with Love because they're so much down for
Teen Papadopoulos.
He's Hellenic supremacist.
He's this kind of short, portly, really hairy, just borderline
he's trying
black.
He's trying to kill all the Nordicists.
And he has he has gold chains, wears his shirt halfway down.
Too much hair. When he's shirtless, it looks like he's wearing a sweater.
Yeah.
Greek people.
But when we're back to them being kidnapped, coolest thing for the what's her name again? The Bond villain girl?
Onatopp.
No, sorry, not the villain. I'm sorry, the woman, the Bond girl.
Natalia.
The
redhead.
He's kicking the seat and bashing, just wake up.
Yeah. And this movie is so good because it's just every shot, every scene, he thinks about, okay, what would the characters be doing? What's the real, it's, it's not, obviously it's not perfect realism or anything, but it's just sort of okay, what, in a narrative sense, what should everyone be doing? Everyone gets something to do.
Yeah. I think it also, she's a really good example of balancing, sort of being sort of independent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And she's a bit sort of feisty,
She's a great Bond girl because
obnoxious,
she's not she's she's that they use their femininity in their strength. Sort of thing. To their strength.
She's a strong woman in more of a proper sense, not a modern sense, because there's a couple instances where she does two really good speeches, and it is jumping, but we'll only just talk about her speeches. If they're talking and yammering when they're getting interrogated by the general, she says, "Oh, you're just boys with toys." It's because she kind of sounds like it sounds like a classic Russian, but she's basically being like a tough mom on them. And then later, when they're on the beach, her and Bond, that's what she also says. She says, "Look, he's your friend. He used to be your friend. He's now your enemy. You're gonna have to kill him," and it's that simple. She's a good piece of advice giver, to be honest.
She's a great character. That's I think And like this is again like jumping ahead a little bit to Tomorrow Never Dies. Like the Chinese chick in that, she's sort of a blank. She's sort of like a nothing burger, really.
She does karate. Bond can have sex with her, and she does karate.
She's like it's
That's
like
her
it's like
uses.
they were just saying, oh, now the Bond chick is Asian again. We haven't done that for like 20 years, so that
She
must be
knows
interesting. Let's
kung
not write
fu.
anything else about her character, which is fine. I'm not going to complain, but I'm just saying like. Yeah, I just like Natalia. Her integration into it is great. You know, they do a really good job with her character, and yeah, I wish there were more female role models like that for women in cinema.
Yes. Yeah.
What else have I got?
You're making me think funny things about Tomorrow Never Dies, but I can't say anything. But,
Well, we'll see what I end up saying about it. But
We've got to mention the
tank chase,
the tank chase. Yeah.
which is I think that might be. I mean, certainly top 5 chases of all time. I would say.
Yeah, so
Comfortably.
Natalia has been sort of kidnapped by the general, and Bond is in like this military sort of barracks, or whatever. And there's loads of tanks, and you see him sort of just look around and spot these tanks, and then cuts back to them just driving away, and then they turn around this corner, and there's this wall, and then just the tank, and it leaves like this little bit of sort of air, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just hanging on this for a bit, and then you're
It's
like,
like a
what is happening,
comedic.
sort of?
It's for like comedic effect almost. Yeah.
And then the tank just punches through, and it's perfectly timed with the theme. And that's the first time you hear the Bond theme. And then not Daniel Craig, Pierce Brosnan's just got his head out the top. It smashes through, and then he sort of pops his head out the top after it's gone through the wall, and he's just making these sort of faces. Shifting his arms around, driving the tank.
Yeah, he's just driving a tank, like just like vibing.
Yeah.
And because
drifting the tank.
I mentioned it whilst we were watching it, but that chase was originally him on a motorcycle. That's all it was. And then Martin Campbell was like, "This is kind of lame, you know. It's just a motorcycle chase." And then one of the technicians on it was like, "Well, you know, this is a military barracks. So, you know, there might be vehicles around here. We could do a tank, you know." And Mark was like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And
it was the best chase scene of all time. Like,
yeah,
like it's up there with the French Connection's got a great chase scene in it as well. That's like the other one that comes to mind for me. But and honestly, even the opening, like this has got 2 of the most memorable chase scenes. Like the opening down the hill. Which is interesting because it's like a flirting chase scene, which is I don't think has ever been done in a movie before. And then obviously Tank is just so much fun. Just him like jumping around.
The opening shot of the tank chase scene when it smashed through that wall. Yeah, because that was a fake wall that had been built there.
Oh, okay.
And obviously they didn't destroy an actual wall. But obviously
it was 90s Russia. They probably could have.
The driver of the tank obviously couldn't see where the car was because there's a wall in the way, so they just had to do it loads of times with the tank driver going up to it and then just braking right before it hits the wall, just seeing if they've got the timing right. And then like he has to start really far back because to get up to speed. So you know there's a lot of give there where they could fuck it up, the timing.
It's such an
amazing... the guy driving the tank managed to nail it the first time. He timed it perfectly to when the car came around the corner.
Dang. It's so
like,
good.
if he didn't, he would have killed the people in the car. Because like the tank would have actually just crushed them if he'd gone too early.
It's so based. I mean, yeah, that's amazing. I love.
And then like,
it
isn't just like a chase. That's like a normal chase, and then they're just being followed by a tank. They actually use the unique aspects of a tank. Because, like, the car can go through all these little sort of side alleys and things. But the tank can literally just punch through buildings. So it can, like, cut them off, and that's how they account for the difference in, like, speeds.
Yeah, it's great.
The tank doesn't have to give a shit about the roads.
It's so good. I love it so much.
Yeah.
What have we got? What have we got next? Oh, then that's pretty much we get to the ending at this point.
Yeah, and there's like the ending has okay. If we're ready for the ending, I just want to point out another Bond trope, but it doesn't get cheesed up. It's perfectly fine. Is Trevelyan's or Janice's the base that they have to find is a totally like classic right out of You Only Live Twice underground Bond villain base, but it's like it works, you know?
Yeah.
Like it has the opening satellite and stuff like that. Like so, it's kind of cool that I find it just like they did some old school stuff, but they did it so tastefully that it doesn't kill them. The vibe, I guess.
Yeah, you don't even really think about it by the time you get to
Cuba. It's another really great miniature.
And because the thing is, it makes sense because it's Cuba, so it's like, oh, this must be an old Soviet base that they're reusing.
Just like because obviously there's satellites. Obviously, the Americans would know if they had this big base, and so it's just this satellite dish submerged in a lake that they just raise up. You know,
and they live under the lake, which is kind of like I think it's You Only Live Twice. It's in a mountain, so that's like the classic villain.
And I love when they get to Cuba and then they crash in the jungle, then they're fighting on a top, and then she gets killed. Great. That's a great fight scene. Like that, she gets a great death.
The build up, right? He's blurry, like he's knocked out, and he gets up and he's kind of blurry. And there's just the woofing, like the helicopter blades are just whooshing around, and he's looking up and he can't quite see. And there's the fact that her dropping out of that chopper to go kill him. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, she's a great secondary villain. She's really great.
Yeah, he shoots at the helicopter pilot, and because she's still attached to it, the helicopter sort of flies away, and she gets pulled up between the two limbs of these trees.
Yeah, just like
it gets crushed. Yeah. And she always did like a good squeeze.
Yeah, that's right.
It's such a good line.
So many there's iconic things that then I just want to mention one stupid thing good stupid thing. When he does set the mines in the last scene, those are the iconic mines that go into the game at the N64 game.
Yes.
And I just love them so much. I just want to say that. Like
I love using. That was like such a you know what move, like using those proximity mines in the N64, just like placing them everywhere, and like people would just like walk past and get killed. It's like, oh, you.
That's so true.
Yeah.
But I did want to mention with the end of the movie, and unless you were going to mention on this, when they're talking, when the dialogue, when they're captured. 006, Trevelyan, Janice, whatever, he wants to specifically go after London and destroy the records of taxes.
I wanted to, yeah. And we were like, where's the problem? Oh no!
No, please don't do that.
Yeah, I was saying, it reminds me of Fight Club. Like, it's the same sort of thing, yeah. Like, oh no, that's so bad, don't do that.
Erasing records, please, no.
You know, and it's Jubilee, like, I mean, you know, that's tradition was Jubilee, like debts every 7 years or whatever it was, you know, you'd cancel them.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that was that's the beginning. It's not the very beginning. Like, I'm not going to mark this Goldeneye movie as like the beginning of this kind of talk, but the computer age was truly coming like now in by 95, because you have like other movies like Hackers and stuff like that.
Yes.
Like they were trying to lay out, this is what computers can do. They can do all this stuff and everything's online, even though the reality at the time was no, not everything was online, because I was a kid then, but I can tell you from where I work now that there's no way that they had all the records online.
No. It was still a long time before. I mean, like, even now there's still like people have stuff on paper, but
but it's painting a picture of the coming age, because that's kind of the idea. But it's cool that that's the only time, at least in what I'm thinking with the use of Goldeneye, the weapon, I mean, in the movie, where it gets like specific as to how he's going to do something, not just you blow up the thing and then the building just blows up. Like, he actually wants to destroy records and stuff. That was pretty cool and sophisticated.
Yeah. All right. Now, is there any closing thoughts on the ending of Goldeneye before we got to jump ahead now to Tomorrow Never Knows?
The ending fight scene between him and Trevelyan is great.
Yeah, that whole bit on the top on the satellite is great. Yeah,
Pretty much no music,
yeah.
really. It's just
And I think that you mentioned this before. Like, this is a movie that knows how to use music, and I think that's why it's so memorable. Is it doesn't just like overplay the theme or overplay, you know, or you use music cues that much at all. Like, it's like, so when it happens, it's so powerful, so effective.
yeah, like you get a genuine sort of sense of tension
Yeah.
during their fight because there's lots of little places on the dish that they can sort of hide
Yeah.
from each other,
Yeah.
and they sort of switch back and forth, sort of chasing one another and trying to find them,
Yeah.
and sort of. I like how because Bond's trying to sabotage it, and it's so simple. Like he just literally just has to shove like a pipe. In
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that though.
ratchet.
At,
Oh,
that,
I
at,
like
that,
that.
at
Good.
that point in the movie,
Like,
you're sold. Yeah.
that is enough. That is
Yeah.
enough to actually do that.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't
And
take
also-
much to break mechanical ratchets like that.
No, it's moving that hard, definitely. Also, right before that scene, it always stuck out to me as done really well. High tension is when he's handed over to Boris the hacker, when he slips him the pen that's a bomb, and he's
Oh
carefully
yeah,
watching
yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's not carefully watching him with a smirk on his face. He's like seriously watching him because he knows that if he doesn't watch him carefully, that thing's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
blow
yeah.
up and kill him.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was a great scene. That's about it. I agree with
Yeah.
everything else with the last fight.
Yeah,
Good
no,
movie.
I just
You make me hate other Bond movies by us talking about it so well. Like it makes me be like F you for the rest of the Bond movies.
Yeah, and then you've got they sort of, and this is another thing. It's good at like increasing the tension of the fight because like it slowly gets to more precarious positions on this dish
yeah,
until you're right at the very sort of tip of the antenna that they're hanging off,
Yeah.
and then Bond manages to knock Trevelyan, and he falls, and then he catches him at the last second,
yeah,
and
For England, James.
no, for me, it's and it's using his one-liners,
yeah.
but then it
yeah,
becomes very serious,
yeah. Like, this movie does a good enough job of deconstructing the whole Bond thing because you have Trevelyan as the foil.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I find like so ridiculous about a lot of these like quote unquote deconstructions in the 2000s and 2010s of characters. It's like people already understood these things. People already knew things were goofy. It's like all these in the 2010s there was so many of these quote unquote like comedy horror movies that were like meta about the horror genre, and it's like that was the whole point the whole time. With anyone with half a brain knew that like horror movies were already made with this tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, you don't have to do a whole movie about the fact that you're making a tongue-in-cheek horror film to think that you're smart. Anyway, that's one thing that particularly annoys me. That's something that annoys me. I'm sorry.
Reconstructions are difficult to do well.
I would say Funny Games is a good one.
Mhm.
I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head, but Funny Games is a good one.
Unforgiven is a good deconstruction of westerns.
Yeah, Unforgiven's good.
Right.
It's made by a guy who likes westerns. You know, he isn't trying to subvert them or destroy them because he hates them.
Yeah. What's a good spy one? Austin Powers. Austin Powers.
Sort of. It's making fun of them, but in an affectionate way.
I would say, yeah, go watch the Austin Powers movies for sure. They're underrated. Well, I don't know if they're underrated, but I haven't watched them in a while. When we watched them, it was good. We still need to watch Goldeneye, don't we?
The third one, which is
Yes.
Gold Member.
Oh, Gold Member. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, it's still that's It's the most ridiculous, yet it still turns out to be pretty funny. So
The first Austin Powers, like,
It's barely ridiculous at all, actually.
it could actually work almost as like a Pierce Brosnan
Yeah.
Bond film.
it's comparable to Die and
Yeah, especially.
Oh, it's probably a better. I would say it's like a legitimately better Bond film than probably Die Another Day.
Die Another Day is pretty awful.
Yes. Okay, well, Tomorrow Never Dies, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, go watch Goldeneye. Go watch. Well, I mean, we'll reiterate this at the end, but yeah, Goldeneye's good. Tomorrow Never Dies. So what have I got written down here? Admiral Brokebuck. That's what I've got written down as my first thing. So I think I was just.
Oh, yeah,
I think I was the
yeah.
the opening. It was just because.
Were you a bit drunk? I think.
Yo, 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 yo. I'm a teetotaler. You know me.
Of course, yeah.
Did we watch a movie before this?
No.
Then I don't know how I was. Anyway, whatever. Tomorrow Never Dies. Pierce Brosnan is fighting Rupert Murdoch, basically, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're fighting Rupert Murdoch, exactly.
So yeah,
And
it opens with like a British ship who is patrolling. Well, not actually patrolling, but they're near the South China Sea.
It opens with Pierce Brosnan like going to that terrorist meeting.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. It's so forgettable of an opening because it's so. That's like such a typical. Let's do the opening. Let's have other characters talking, and then they're referring to James Bond, and then we'll show him. And it's like such a typical.
Yeah, like you already did that in Goldeneye with actual taste, and now you're doing it again. Like it's so dumb. Yeah,
like
we already know the movie.
It's just hard to compare because Goldeneye is literally one of the best action openings ever. So it is kind of rough. It's kind of unfair, but that was the thing I wanted to mention really quickly before we're transitioning to male to female was budget for Goldeneye guesses.
Oh,
I gotta.
It's old enough that I'd have to do a bit of conversion though.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Let me tell you this. I'll say this: Goldeneye was 60 million.
60 million.
All right. Guess how much Tomorrow Never Dies was, which came out. Pretty close. 110. And it looks so much worse. It looks so much worse.
Exactly. You know why? Because you're fat and lazy and spoiled with that much money. You had they probably had that low budget because it was the first time back in 6 years or whatever.
This has been my example lately. That the Black Widow film, one of the more recent cape shit films. Yeah. That singular film has a bigger budget than the entirety of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That's wrong.
They have a scene where they're talking in a forest and it's on a green screen because they were too lazy to just go out to a forest and film it. There's literally a scene where they're just shooting on the patio of a house and it's a green screen because they were too lazy to actually go to someone's house.
Yeah. Tomorrow Never Dies. I mean, look, I haven't watched the third and fourth one yet again, so maybe they're even worse. Tomorrow Never Dies. I don't want to be too harsh to it, but the thing is, like, we just watched Goldeneye. We just discussed Goldeneye and how that's like top 5, 90s action movies easily. One of the best action movies ever, one of the best Bond movies, and then now we jump into Tomorrow Never Dies, and it's everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's like a perfectly acceptable 6 out of 10 movie, basically.
Yeah.
That's heightened a bit by the if you remove like things that are likable about it and you just look at how well it's made, it's like it's a 6 out of 10. And then when you incorporate sort of the fun goofiness of it, then I'd say it's probably like a 7 or 8.
I think I was probably more critical. I'm more critical when I'm when the gin is talking.
You're a teetotaler, I don't know what you mean.
When the coffee is talking. Do teetotalers have coffee?
Yes. Teetotaling is no alcohol and tobacco.
They don't have tobacco, bro.
Yeah, that's all teetotaling is.
Tomorrow Never Dies. I think the most interesting thing... The opening is... Yeah, he's blowing up terrorists, no-name terrorists, and that has nothing connected... Was that even connected to any other part of the plot, the opening?
Yeah, because they get the red box thing that jams the... that messes with the ship's navigation systems.
See, that was lame, because like the opening, obviously, of Goldeneye, like...
It doesn't mention it, though, right? Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, it's just... It's... They could have done a better opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically just shows that one terrorist guy, and it mentions the GPS box, but he doesn't even know about it at that point. It just has a slight connection, and they call him White Knight, and then it goes into the music. The musical intro is was like that's the definition of pop culture intro because at the time because in 1997, man, X-Ray and like oh
Yeah,
man, that was just
I loved it.
it's
I loved the opening song is great. I really loved it.
Yeah.
Um,
And
Yeah, yeah, I
it's
don't
another
mind
one with good visuals. They aren't quite as good as Goldeneye's,
yeah,
but the
I would say yeah. The song in the intro is.
I think my
In terms of the
I
Bond
think the
elements,
criteria
it's quite
for
still
a
strong.
good
It's still
yeah, I
strong.
think the criteria for a good Bond intro in terms of the visuals is its sort of thematic relevance to the story.
Yeah,
And whilst because this is sort of dealing with tech, the future of media and everything, and so that they do have those elements, but it isn't quite as strong
yeah,
as it is in Goldeneye with the imagery of the collapsed Soviet
yeah.
statue.
And I think because
But
Goldeneye
it
is
is
obviously
easier to do because the imagery of the Soviet Union is so iconic,
yeah
whereas the imagery of like media and
technology.
it
Well, it was still
especially
forming
back
at that
then,
point. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
yeah, and that aesthetic of the intro is what the cultural aesthetic is from that point on, or maybe a little before
yeah,
going into the 2000s. Like that whole computery tech thing kind of holds all the way through.
yeah.
So it's interesting because if you look at the Goldeneye one, it's more of just has to do with the movie, also has to do with Cold War. It's like it is relevant for its day
Yeah.
and stuff. But
It's more.
no, it was a good intro.
Goldeneye is more like it was the perfect story to adapt for like bringing Bond into the 90s, basically. And then this one, it's just like, oh, okay, well, I guess we've got Brosnan. Let's just do another Bond story. And I think at this point, like 24-hour news channels were just beginning. I don't know when like CNN and that sort of stuff started.
CNN I think existed then,
but it was like
for sure.
yeah, like 24-hour news stuff was sort of starting then, late 90s, and it was just very
Yeah, because the very first binging thing that really was available on TV was news binging. Or like if you're a news junkie. Are you a news junkie? You binge watch news like that because you could, right? You could watch news all the time. Yeah, no, don't you love the beginning scene with Carver though when he's like, okay, well, where are we at here? And they're like, the software that we're going to put out will have bugs in it, sir. We're going to blackmail the president, sir. We're going to manipulate the news, sir.
Yeah, well,
it's so goofy.
so
Jonathan Pryce is great though.
Yeah, after the scene with the arms dealers, it then goes to this ship patrolling near the South China Sea, and they get raided in by the Chinese Air Force, telling them that they're in the Chinese waters, and this ship looks at its maps and says, "No, we aren't. We're perfectly allowed to be
We aren't
here."
in Chinese waters.
Yeah. And you find out that there's this stealth ship.
Yeah.
I think it's a catamaran type ship.
Yeah.
And it's messing with it's using that red box thing that Bond saw at the arms dealers to mess with where they think their position.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are actually in Chinese waters. And they then send out this drill torpedo thing.
Yeah. Very goofy.
I'm trying to think, why couldn't they just use an actual torpedo? Why was the drill necessary?
Because it looks cooler. Look, I don't mind like the goofiness of this movie. The goofiness is completely fine with me. It was more the cinematography and the characters is what let it down.
Yeah.
Because the cinematography is fine, but it's like Goldeneye. Every shot is like so aesthetic. Like Pierce Brosnan is in the middle of the screen, like, and just like looking aloof. And then in this, they don't use. There's just too many. There's too much of it where it's just clunky.
Yeah, but and they send out that drill thing. It destroys the ship. And then there's survivors in the water.
Yeah.
So they kill them with the same ammunition that the Japanese Air Force uses.
Chinese?
Chinese, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a total manipulation kind of plan.
And then you find out that the guys on this ship were working for this media mogul called Carver, who has, what is it? It's the Tomorrow. Tomorrow's his.
Yes, which I thought that was cute. Like, because normally the title doesn't. I mean, Goldeneye was Goldeneye,
the
but
title usually not related?
Well, it does. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's not. Like this was a cute one. Like Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah. Oh, the newspaper's called Tomorrow. Anyway, Jonathan Pryce, main character of Brazil. Go watch Brazil because that's a superior film.
Yeah.
But I see. I don't have my notes here are very incoherent for a variety of reasons. Because I was so sober. I was so sober. I was too sober.
Let me see. What about the? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they do the like just to get a little esoteric, but it's obvious. The idea that Carver media groups kind of make disasters and they blackmail and they kind of manipulate and they kind of essentially they are fake news. They make their own news.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in a more sophisticated, like hardcore way because they'll actually make a real war in China. But the funny thing is, what's the real life version of that? Well, it's CNN in the late '80s, I think, early '90s when they were caught.
The Iraq War,
Serbia and stuff. Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, like, the crazy thing is, in real life, they don't even have to actually attack a ship. They just completely lie. It's 100% lie.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
And I love. Yeah. Sorry, guy. I was. What was I going to say?
It's like this was 1997, and what was it? The Iraq War was 2003.
There was the first Gulf War though. At that point.
No, the first Gulf War was the early '90s.
War,
yeah. And then obviously Serbia, like the Yugoslav wars.
Yeah.
Which Kosovo, Serbia. Controversial take, but it's true.
It's true because Anthony Bourdain, who when he did his CNN show, once said that his favorite movie was like Godfather 1 and 2, not 3 for some reason.
Well, 3 sucks, but yeah.
3
does suck, but yeah, you're right. But he said like Godfather 1 and 2, he's like, as great of a movie as they are, that's not really what the Mafia is. He's like, what the Mafia is, and he goes into this whole thing because he's in Italy, that the Mafia is just a bunch of garbage. Like he literally just bashes the Italians and says they're basically just thuggish people that have no connection to anything that the movies are doing. When that's not true even a little bit. Like not even close. Like you can't have you can't be both. You can't have dirtball criminals and sophisticated criminals that are connected to high-end people, which is obviously the truth. I'm saying like he's on CNN saying that. And what's funny is I just thought of that about this movie because Tomorrow Never Dies is goofier. It's more classic Bond in that goof sense, but it's painting a real picture. And like, look where we are today. I mean, whether you agree with it or not, there's a giant divide right now in the world as to whether we're being lied to constantly or not. So
I think I mean, let's just get into the thematic elements of this movie. I think because that's the only thing that's the most interesting part about it.
You've got the rise of China. Is one of them.
Yeah, which is interesting because this is quite early pick of it, because it's the first pop culture thing to say, Rise of China. But I wanted to
This is actually because Nixon opened up China.
70s.
70s, yeah, and it took them a while.
And then Japan, like everyone was like, "Oh, Japan's going to be the thing," up until the early 90s, and then I guess it was the mid 90s. Maybe people realized, "Oh, it's going to be China actually."
When their economy collapsed.
Yeah.
This would have been. That's what it is. So, China opened up their economy, but this would have been when they actually opened up for visitors. Like this would have been when they opened up for properly opened up, yeah. That's
meet hot Chinese girls. No, okay. So the thing I wanted to point out, okay, I've got here written Danish sex when he's just with his quote unquote. See, look, Goldeneye. We have a scene where he's driving down. We get a whole cool car chase scene where he's flirting via car chasing. And then he has sex with the woman. In this one, it's literally, he's just like, oh, she teaches me Danish. Like, there's no thought to it. There's no flair to it. And it's just like, oh, he's just is with a woman. We don't... Because obviously, what's interesting about Bond is how he seduces the woman. We want to watch him seducing the woman. That's what's interesting. That's what's like entertaining. Not just not literally him like sleeping with the women. Like that's not a that's like okay whatever. Like yeah, you know.
Sleep with women and then speak Danish to them, which is an absurd language.
But no, what I wanted to mention was they refer to Jonathan Pryce's character Carver as the Emperor of the Air, which may or may which has to be either the right. I mean, the writers must have been aware of the fact that we called Satan the Prince of the Air, and I just thought that was I don't know if that was just like how deep they were meant with that reference, but it's clear because he's the father of all lies.
Level one of that, it's like media broadcasts are like on the airwaves or whatever. Like that's the surface level.
Yeah.
Sort of.
But yeah, so that's
no, but that's a good point. That's a good point. I don't. Yeah. It could even be their own Freudian slip of just that's all they can think. They can only even in their own subconscious they can only link him to. And I don't really believe in Freudian crap, but just I mean that they're linking him to the devil, whether they know it or not. It's just the way of the world.
Because the Satan is called the Prince of all lies or the Father of all lies, and I just thought that was a interesting. It's interesting to have such an anti-journalist movie because like you would not get this nowadays at all.
No, not at all. And because he would also be, he'd be a rogue, not the ultimate, like not the leader in media in the world. He would be a rogue of some sort. Because in the at the party,
he is presented as a rogue. Yeah.
Well, they're always a rogue, but he is like the top rogue. Like he's having meetings with the Chinese generals and stuff like that. Like, and also, what does he say at the party? Carver suggests that the Mad Cow, the entire Mad Cow orchestration in the news in the '90s, was made by him because he basically had like a bad deal or he lost poker to a guy, so he did the whole Mad Cow, and then France paid him to keep the story going for another year in the media.
And that's what's interesting about this movie is that whole understanding that journalism is just another part of the mechanisms of power. It's got nothing to do with telling you the truth or anything. Obviously, anyone listening to this would obviously know that already. But it's just ridiculous. It's but I like it's nice to have a journalist as a villain for once because every movie, I've got to tell my story, and it's just like shut up, like no,
don't you know that journalists are fighting for you against the powerful.
I hate journalists, man. I hate journalists so much.
It's good to have. It was a good villain, honestly. It straight up was a good villain. What I really hated in the movie was his bimbo whore of a wife. Sorry to say,
Yeah, I thought that was a really weak, like Bond woman. It was just like, she. Because again, we don't see him flirting with her. It's just like, it's a former fling, so there's already something there.
Yeah.
So we don't even get to see because that's what everyone wants to see is him seducing the women. And I'm sorry to say it, but it's
dies for having an affair. So.
Yeah, which is
base.
Not unreasonable, but it's just I just wish.
It's not unreasonable to kill your wife.
Imagine if it was just like, we're sending you in to seduce his wife.
Yeah.
Which, cringe in one level. But I guess that's why they did it. They did it because they made it a former girlfriend because it's less morally abhorrent for him to re-seduce a woman that he's already seduced rather than like newly seduce a wife of a villain.
Yeah, and they have her. See, this is where it's it doesn't want to get too sort of morally grey here because they have her regularly reaffirm that she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And she sort of initiates a lot of it.
Yeah.
Because if, she had been reluctant, and then because obviously she dies because of it, then, you would have actually had to think about what James Bond is doing here. Like...
Yeah, and they're not trying to
led her into...
they're not trying to do deconstruction. It's just like... Why not just make her like Jonathan Pryce's top guy? Like, why make her the wife?
Yeah.
Why not make
her like his
Jonathan
you know
Pryce's top guy?
his like PA or something.
You have to seduce his top man, James Bond.
Yeah, it should have been a dude. It should have been a dude.
Real
Just
talent.
like a really like hot
Well, I mean,
dude.
they've said that they're not opposed to the next James Bond being a bisexual. So
No comment.
Well,
Moving on.
Suggested that in Skyfall, by the way, they suggested that the agents are gay in Skyfall.
That's
what
what we're
Javier
about him. Yeah.
Character's gay.
Oh, I've got I've got it written here.
Gay sex.
This is a joke. This is a joke from.
Do your duty.
This is a joke from. Dave. So David said this joke. David Erhan. I'm not stealing jokes. I'm attributed to him, so he gets all the credit. So if anyone listens to this and laughs, they can go follow David. At one point, what is it? They said, "Made your bed, now lie in it." Did someone say that?
Yeah.
And then, so David said, "You made your bed, now fuck in it."
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's a bimbo, man. Really, she made no sense. She basically like hated him, slapped him around, and then she showed up at his hotel room later.
I don't know. I think that makes perfect sense for a woman.
I mean, it makes sense, but it's like that.
Yeah.
Is that what is the most interesting, compelling, like female character you could have? Like, is that how you want to do it? Like, I don't know how I would do it differently.
Right.
But you know, the female characters in Goldeneye, yeah, they because they both added to the plot, they added to the depth of like what was going on. Whereas in this, it was sort of like, it just felt like, okay, the villain has a woman that James Bond like sleeps with, therefore the villain hates him more now.
It was a way of getting a personal connection between Bond and the villain, so he cared a bit more when he finally killed him.
Yeah,
but it's like,
it didn't work. They didn't need to do that.
It's not always necessary.
I feel like this movie suffered from trying to not
been taken to its extreme in the Craig ones.
Yeah,
like every villain is from someone from his past, or whatever.
Yeah, and I feel like this movie suffers from trying to not be episodic.
Yeah,
and it should have been more episodic or something. I don't know. It was just sort of. It should have tried to stand on its own a bit more, I guess. I don't know. It just didn't work as well. What else have we got on?
If we're jumping around, because I mean, really, the story, we've laid out the story. Now it's just a matter of like, now they just have like a couple cool scenes. Because I have to say that the Halo jump that he did, the Halo jump was a cool scene because the Halo jump's a real thing. It's not a gimmick because it's like cool. A real way of skydiving.
That was awesome.
It was neat, but it's like, in the back of my head I was like, Mission Impossible Halo jump though.
Yeah, true.
Where, because the Halo jump in Mission Impossible Fallout is, it's real.
It's literally Tom Cruise doing it.
Yeah, it's literally Tom Cruise actually doing a Halo jump.
We got to discuss the Tom Cruise movies.
Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies are actually good movies. Like, I like every single one of them. So
the latest ones are genuinely incredible.
5 and 6
some
were
of the best action films of all time.
5 and 6 were so good. They were like 9 out of 10. Yeah. They were awesome. They were so good.
But he's getting older. He's so old, and he's still doing like so good. Like, yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah. It's the crazy.
He's 60 this year.
Man.
Wow.
We got to do a Tom Cruise retrospective month. Now that would be a good. That would be.
He's got lots. Yeah, have you ever seen The Firm? Have you ever watched The Firm?
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah, good movie. It's a very good movie. But no, I thought like there's gimmicky things in the movie, and the Halo jump was one of them because it was. I mean, skydiving. I actually, believe it or not, skydiving was pretty gimmicky in Hollywood in the '90s because there was. I mean, Point Break, obviously, but then there was like a movie with Charlie Sheen where it's like all about skydiving and stuff. So like, I don't know.
Big skydiving like was paying off Hollywood.
Yeah.
Big skydiving.
I loved. I mean, the gimmicky scene is him like in the backseat of the car, like using a GameCube controller to like drive it around.
Yeah.
To be honest, as a child, as like a young lad watching that like outdid Goldeneye for me. Just the scene, not the movie, because two things: the gadgetry, like that phone he had, like dude, that's why I became a soy jack for phones at some point in my life because of like that phone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was like I have to admit I got soy pulled into that. It soy pilled me.
Yeah, the Pierce Brosnan Bond films just slowly get more absurd with their gadgets.
Yeah, I'm curious to revisit because I've never seen the third one, but I've watched Tomorrow Never Dies. Oh no, it's not. No shit. No, Die Another Day.
Die Another Day. Yeah.
I've watched Die Another Day, but I've never seen The World Is Not Enough. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see how Denise Richards goes.
I dislike Denise Richards.
I have a suspicion. I have a suspicion that maybe she'll be okay. I don't know. We'll see.
Her face just annoys me.
That's okay. Maybe I'll forgive her.
And forgive her. It has some cool things. The movie itself has cool things. Well, Tomorrow Never Dies. They're about the same level, but Tomorrow Never Dies. I kind of thought was better. Like the BMW scene was pretty cool. Rewatching it though, okay, you know the part where they're like trying to break into his car and they sledgehammer the windows and it just like the sled just okay. Well, if you watch carefully, watch the guys, the henchmen, pulling out the sledgehammers from the car, getting ready to hammer the car, like out of their car. What you'll notice is the acting of where the director would have said, okay, I need you because these sledgehammers are actually styrofoam. I need you to pretend that they're heavy and just watch how they're acting that they're heavy. It's overdone like to the nines. Like that was like so amazing, man.
Oh man, yeah. I think that's the problem with this movie is the little details aren't there. The little details aren't there, and I feel it's not a bad movie by any means. Like you could throw it on, and you'll have it's perfectly enjoyable action movie. It's just like coming off Goldeneye, which is pretty much perfect. It's I feel bad for it. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk because we're talking a lot of smack about it, but that's like in comparison to Goldeneye, which is one of the best Bond films, one of the best action films, one of the best spy films ever.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like
it's a good show, man. Tomorrow Never Dies is good. Like I mean, the next big gimmick is scene, I should say, action scene is the helicopter scene and the motorcycle with
which is amazing, which is great. That's the best scene in the movie,
yeah.
And I like the Bond girl in this. It's kind of it's cute having them both be spies for different governments and they're working together.
Let me just point out one of my favorite things watching it this time, but I actually noticed it. I do remember that I always notice it when they are together in the hideout, in the Chinese hideout, and she's got all her Chinese tech, and he looks and picks up an Omega Seamaster, which is what he wears, which is like $6,000 watch or something. He steals it. He just puts it in his pocket, which is
based.
And I was like, based move by Bond. And when the helicopter crashes into the wall, this time is the only time I've ever seen it my entire life watching Tomorrow Never Dies. The very last cutscene of that helicopter crunching into the wall, it's fake, and there's like toy dolls are the pilots. Like it's really.
Wait a minute, they didn't actually smash the plane?
Yeah, those guys didn't die.
Damn.
Unfortunately, couldn't kill. It's not old Hollywood. You kill the extras, but not new Hollywood.
Now let me see what else I've got written here. I've got Little Red Brick.
Trying to decipher you're drunk.
What about Bond was scrubbing? They were scrubbing each other in the shower.
Oh yeah.
That was kind of weird. I was like, and he was like scrubbing the back of her head with a piece of soap.
Yeah, it was kind of.
What was going on? It was very odd. I don't know why.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
But no, it's a good he says get on the back of the motorbike, like on the motorcycle, and she goes, "Why are you trying to protect me?" And he says, "No, I need to balance the bike." I think that was a cool little.
Yeah, there was still like, Brosnan is the I would say he's the best element of this movie easily.
Yeah.
It's just his charisma. I wouldn't say it carries the film, but it is a part of the effort of holding it up. Because I mean, this is a lot. This is more goofy than Goldeneye, but the thing is, because Goldeneye was just like so immaculately shot, and all the characters were well rounded. You can get past any of the goofiness in Goldeneye. You don't even think about it really.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, because it doesn't have that, you think about the goofiness, which I don't care about goofiness in a movie necessarily, but it just wasn't as tight as Goldeneye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
I think the director Roger Spottiswoode. I do wonder if he was trying to be a bit more sort of profound with the story, like its commentary on media influence and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he then got like these goofy elements. I don't know if it was him or the studio, or whatever. Because like, one of his more famous films outside of this, which is actually good. Like he's done plenty of schlocky sort of action. But I think his more famous one was Shake Hands with the Devil.
Oh, okay.
Which is about the Rwandan genocide.
Yeah, I remember that.
And if you know anything about it, you'd know that a core part of the Rwandan genocide was media propaganda, the radios.
Oh, okay.
They used to day and night, over and over, encourage them to go out and kill people.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
So
what the heck? I didn't know that. That's brutal.
So I don't know if this is like something Roger Spottiswoode is interested in,
like media manipulation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say the media stuff is interesting, but they make Jonathan Pryce too cartoonish for it to like actually resonate in any way.
Yeah, and that's
it's still interesting. It's still interesting. Like it's still cool to have a movie where the journalist is the villain, but it doesn't.
It's like, isn't this goofy? The journalist, the villain.
Whereas I would say Goldeneye, like as actiony as it is or whatever, it still resonates. Like thinking, like being reflective about the fact that maybe British, the Allies did bad things like in the 20th century.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Do you guys got anything else to say about Tomorrow Never Dies, or?
It's interesting how, I guess it peters out. Even the last action scene isn't as good as prior action scenes in Tomorrow Never Dies, like the final scene.
Yeah, the ending in the boat is kind of lame. I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad, but it's just like it doesn't feel like a finale.
Yeah,
no.
Lackluster, I suppose, or something. It's just not as good.
Yeah.
I think the showdown, like, they kind of made the blonde German bad guy out to be, I'm so tough.
Yeah, they made him into trying to making him like the honor top equivalent, or like the secondary, like the
like Jaws.
Yeah.
He doesn't have enough personality though.
It's just like, oh, I'm Aryan. It's like, okay, and
my Aryanness is very powerful. Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
It's like we see him killing the innocent sailors, and it's like, okay, other than that, like, what does he do that makes him seem villainous or seem like a difficult villain? Whereas on a top, it's like, oh, we see her killing a guy, we see her in doing different sorts of things.
Rather than have a scene where he and Bond meet, like, because when the wife of Carver is killed, they have that bizarre, faggoty German hitman. Sorry.
You mean lovely German hitman?
Well, saying what I said in front of German is redundant, I suppose. But,
yes, they introduce another character needlessly, whereas they could have just made it the German guy, and they could have had
bizarre character.
they could have had the Aryan guy kill her, and they could have had a scene where him and Bond talk for at least 20 seconds. And
then fight or whatever, and the Aryan dude gets away, whatever, or Bond gets away. He runs.
Rather than introducing another character into a film, because like movies, at the end of the day, they're 2 hours long.
The room has
so
a window. There's a window prominently framed in that scene. One of them goes out the window.
Yeah.
There you go.
That was a waste.
One of them goes out the window.
Yeah, they could have further developed the Aryan master, but they didn't.
Yeah, kind of sucked. But yeah, it's that's the problem with this show is we do double features, and so if one movie is really good and the other movie is middling, the middling movie is made to seem horrible because we just praise the other movie and we compare it, and it's the nature of the show. But yeah, watch Goldeneye, Tomorrow Never Dies if you like Brosnan enough. Yeah, I mean, do you guys have anything else to say about Tomorrow Never Dies?
Let Jack think a while.
Let me look at my notes. What do I got here? Little Red something. Decadent Western.
I remember that. They have the scene on her boat or whatever, where they talk about China, and it's like she says, "I don't have a little red book," you know.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's trying to sort of say, "Oh, yeah, the Chinese, they're just like you and me."
Oh yes.
Forget the preconceived notions of the brainwashed Chinese. You know, they're free thinkers like us in the West.
Yeah.
Sort of that I did.
And that really is the show. It shows the blending of that they've always been trying to take. First they do the Hegelian dialectic of capitalism versus communism comes, and now the solution is to merge them both.
Yeah.
Good.
Sure thing. I'm out of notes. I'm out of notes for Tomorrow Never Dies.
All hail to glorious leader Xi Jinping.
True. Facts.
Yes.
My final step.
Yeah, I'd say so. She was a good. Okay, I'll just say this about her, the actress. I found her to be way more cheesy in Bond, yet she's in one of my favorite movies, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and she's great. Yeah.
I thought she was. Her acting was good. It was the writing that was the weakness of her character. Like she elevated the writing, and so did Pierce Brosnan. Like you know.
Just bad one-liners, I guess she had.
Yeah, because like sometimes you get characters like actors, and they either they make the writing worse or they elevate it. But yeah, in this movie certainly.
Michelle Yeoh is her name.
Right.
Michelle Yeoh.
Yeoh. She's a Malaysian Chinese.
Ah, interesting. Oh, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into it, but I find it interesting the types of Asians they pick to have as the like sexy Asian character in like 80s 90s films versus more and more modern films. Like what it's interesting to me, like because obviously like what's attractive in a European woman has changed over time. And it's just interesting as well that same phenomenon has occurred in what Oriental women are considered attractive as well. It's interesting. It's all of interest to me.
Are you thinking of that Last Samurai meme where the guy just calls Tom Cruise a weeb?
well, that's a good point. Exactly. Like only 5 or so years later after that, they have a much more Chinese-looking or Asian-looking woman be the love interest in a Western film. Yeah. But I just thought it was interesting.
The way beauty standards have changed over time is kind of odd. Like you get consistent things generally. Like the consistent thing has been that men and women should look different, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's still broad things change. Like it's like something that comes to mind is like in the medieval period, it's like women used to shave their hairlines up because large foreheads were attractive.
Interesting.
But it's like the exact opposite thing is attractive these days. Like women will have bangs just to cover their forehead.
Yeah. Huh.
Maybe that'll come back as a style. We'll
Maybe.
get it eventually.
Maybe. That's interesting. Just you got so many cute little factoids for me, Jack.
Thank you.
That's true.
That's why you keep me around.
Yeah, that's why you're the co-host.
He
I think we've said
doesn't
everything.
pay me though.
Well, look, when I see
This is why I say glory to the CCP, because when
They
they
pay
arrive
you.
in Australia,
they'll pay you.
they will free me of your tyrannical yoke. I will get my money. Alright?
Yeah. When I see dime one from this show, then I'll give you
50 cents.
some money. We've got someone in the chat here. Style section. Windows warning. Elliot Carver. Mr. Jones, are we ready to release our new software? Jones. Yes, sir. As requested. It's full of bugs. Oh yeah. Which since we will be forced to upgrade for years. Yeah, it's so true. So true. That's such a
Predicted.
I think we
planned
touched on that, but yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
This movie isn't subtle with its
No.
thematic. Like he literally just talks to a board of people, and they all list off annoying things that
Yeah,
tech moguls do.
yeah. It's
That's its political commentary.
Yeah, which I mean, they don't say anything wrong, but it's like it's not subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's everything we've got to say. Go watch Goldeneye. If you enjoy the Bond thing, then obviously watch the other one, Tomorrow Never Dies. But yeah, I highly recommend Goldeneye. What was the other movie I mentioned? Brazil. Go watch Brazil. Honestly.
Go watch Mask of Zorro.
We'll talk about that one day. Oh, so
Go watch.
John, are you
don't know.
thinking what next week we could do the other two, part 2 of this Brosnan special?
Yeah.
or-
Are we gonna touch upon Die Another Day? That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll do both.
We'll do yeah.
Oh yeah.
Part
yeah,
well,
no,
there's
for
only
sure.
4, so yeah, it works
Yeah,
out perfectly.
Yeah,
So
there's only 4. Hey,
Part
I'll tell you
2.
this. One day when you get to touch upon a little gem called Moonraker, that'll be glorious.
well, look, I'll have you
What's
on
he
for.
doing? I
I'll
think
have
he's
you on-
attempting re-entry. So.
We'll do Moonraker and Moon. If you've seen that film
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Rockwell,
Moon.
Sam Rockwell.
That's a good. Hey,
That's good.
are you ever going to do? There's actually some good Sam Rockwell, but have you ever heard of that movie called Heist with Gene Hackman and Sam Rockwell?
No, that's good.
No, there's that
Yeah.
one that I really okay. We could pair that with. There's a movie where it's Robert De Niro, Marlon Brando, and Edward Norton are like bank robbers. And
I've
like,
seen it. Oh, what's that called? That takes place in Montreal too.
and Edward Norton plays a retard, or his character is pretending to be a retard so he can
Yeah.
infiltrate this bank because they let him be the janitor or something. The score.
Yeah.
Oh, style section. Thank you,
yeah.
style section. Style section has come in clutch in the chat.
Perfect. The
Thanks.
Yeah.
score and Heist together, perfect movies to do. Because
Alright.
Heist is legit. You guys are both. You'll love Heist.
Thank you so
Gene
much,
Hackman?
style sec. This is why I stream this thing.
It's
Occasionally,
directed by Frank Oz.
what?
on earth?
Wait, which one? The style or the score or the
The
heist?
score is directed by Frank Oz.
That's trippy as. What do we say? Heist, and then we said Moonraker and Moon. Okay, I'm just putting it into my.
Yeah, no, we can do the Bond movies next week. That's fine by me. I
Alright.
have. I always have my James Bond movies like loaded onto my television. They're never not on my television.
Oh, we've hit, Joseph has just entered the chat. He says, "God bless you, boys." Thank you, Joseph.
Oh,
Nice to
thank
hear
you,
from you, sir. I'll have to have you back on at some point, Joseph, if you're listening.
Oh, definitely. He's got to come back on.
But yeah, we'll do part 2 of this Brosnan retrospective some point next week, depending on when we have the time. And there may or may not be, well, there probably will be an episode in between, where me and Jack will discuss something blue. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
James Bond rocks just like dudes rock.
So true.
He's an inspiration.
He's an inspiration to architecture enthusiasts everywhere.
We need to discuss that maybe next episode. Maybe Jack can go off on and give us a lecture about that.
All right.
Hey, this was good, Jack. You're a welcomed additive to.
Yeah, this is the
show.
first episode. We did 3 mics, and I think it's good. I think it's good to have 3 more higher energy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, goodbye, everyone.
Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.